Hi, this is Nicole Dyer, and this is the Research Like a Pro question and answer series. In today's video, Diana Elder, accredited genealogist, is talking about smart research logging, AI tools for citations and sources. And she talks about incorporating artificial intelligence tools into your research logging workflow to make things more efficient. And hopefully, this helps you as you're working on your own research logging.
So, we are going to talk all about tips on research logging. And a research log might sound pretty simple, but once you get started and you're in the thick of your research, sometimes you just wonder, how am I supposed to be doing this? Am I doing this right? Do I have the right workflow? What would be some tips? So here's some of the challenges I thought of, and I've been doing a lot of just good hardcore research the last few weeks using Family Search full text search and finding so many documents, deeds, and court records and things that I didn't have previously that it's been a little overwhelming, to be honest, because there's so much to log. And I think sometimes we get to that point and we just think, oh, do I have to log it? Can I just look at it? But then of course we can't remember where something was and we do have to slow down and log our research. So here are some of the challenges. One is actually creating the citation because you may not want to stop and do the citation, but we do teach to do that first. Get it out of the way. You're going to learn about your source as you're creating that. And then you might also need to transcribe a record or do an extract, pull the information out, or create an abstract. And that can be hard too. You know, those aren't necessarily easy steps. They are for some documents, but for some, it is hard. And then what do you do if you have something that's multi-pages? Like, you find a court record that's 10 pages long. It just keeps going on and on, a case or a probate file or a pension file and you've got all these pages. How do you deal with that? What do you do? Well, and then figuring out your own workflow. What's the best way to do that? I think we all have our own little systems and how we do it. And honestly, it takes practice. And the more you do it, the more you'll get into a flow. But I'll show you some things that I do that might help you. And then how do you keep track of all your screens and open windows? So if you have a couple of screens or maybe even three monitors, and then you have different windows open, how do you track where everything is? And that really is going to come down to individuality and some, experience as well. But I do have a tip for that that maybe will help. So we are going to use for our example, our very first one. I have a few examples here. The 1830 census. And this is, a typical census. We all have used these types of records before. Here's the image on the right, and then here is the record from Ancestry on the left for this John E. Dawson. So the very first thing that we should do is start a row in our research log for this census. We can fill in the name of the person we want to log, John Dawson, the year 1830. We can right away get the URL put in there. I like to do that in case I get interrupted and then I lose my place. We can put the locality. That's easy. This is Morgan County, Georgia. And then we come to the source citation. We've got to create a source citation. So you could just do something very simple, 1830 census, but we do have an assistant now we could use, and that is AI as an assistant. So I have been experimenting with this to see if this could make my life a little bit easier, especially as I'm creating a lot of different citations. And I'm going to say this with a caveat to turn to AI. If you are brand new and you've never created a source citation before, I would highly recommend you still work on creating your own for a bit till you just get the hang of it and you understand the elements that need to go into a citation. But if you've done this before, you've been doing this for a while and you know what you're doing, then maybe you could turn to AI. You could also use AI as an assistant if you're brand new and just have it get you started. And so that's just a thought. But one of the things you can do is you could create a project in ChatGPT or Claude. Those are two large language models that let you do a project. And in a project, you get to provide project knowledge, and then you get to put in your instructions and save your instructions. And so this could be something that perhaps you start your own template, and we do have you do that in the course in Research Like a Pro. We have you start your own template. We provide a source citation template that I've done, but of course, I'm not going to have all the citations that you are going to need because you might be researching in Germany and need templates for those types of citations, whereas mine are all US based. And so you can take some time really thinking about how to create, a citation for something you commonly use as a template. And then you could upload that as project knowledge. And then you wouldn't have to redo that, every time you want to ask AI to help you. So here's an example of a project in Claude that I set up. And I called it Diana's Genealogy Source Citation Builder. I actually used the same prompt and put it over in ChatGPT as a specialized GPT. And so it has the same instructions. I set it up in both places. And so I could use it in both. But you can see I put in a lot of instructions. So I don't ever have to put these instructions in again once I have it in a project. So we can just read through this to give you maybe an idea of how you could set up something similar for you. So I described it. I said, this is an expert genealogy assistant specialized in building citations based on principles from Evidence Explained and the Chicago Manual of Style. Okay, so AI does have project knowledge or in their database, they have Chicago Manual of Style. There's been so much written on Chicago Manual of Style, plus it is online. And Evidence Explained, Elizabeth Show Mills has her website there where she's been answering questions about citations and writing about citations for years. And so there's a lot of project knowledge just on her website. Then I say the uploaded FLG citation template. So this stands for Family Locket Genealogist. So that's, my professional citation template holds many examples of citations that can also be considered. When a user pastes details from a U.S. Census record, you will generate the appropriate citation based on the provided templates for each census year, specifically for family search and ancestry websites. The GPT should ensure that citations are formatted correctly and include all necessary details from the record. No details should be changed from the information in the record and the specifics in the citation templates. If some of the information is not available, leave the specific in the template for the user to fill in or omit. The tone should be professional but accessible, ensuring clarity and ease of use for all users. Only the provided templates should be used for citation formatting. The templates for the year 1790 to 1850 for both family search and ancestry are available in the uploaded file. Note the template also includes styles for census citations in the new Evidence Explained style and the NGSQ style. For census citation queries, use new Evidence Explained style unless the user requests an alternate. When a user uploads an image or pastes details from a genealogy source, you'll create the citation by answering the 5 questions. These are detailed in the knowledge titled Chapter 5 Source Citations. Wow, so you can see that that has a lot of details. I thought long and hard about what to put in there. And actually, I believe that I gave AI when I was doing this. It's been about a year. I think I asked it to help me write the prompt. I think I put in some basic things and then said, help me write a prompt for this, which is something you can do as well and kind of a fun thing. So I mentioned project knowledge, and here's what it looks like on Claude at least. Each ChatGPT will look a little bit different, but you can see I've uploaded chapter 5 from my book, Source Citations. And so I have that in a Word format, that chapter. And so I uploaded it there. And then I uploaded my templates. So now it can always go look for the appropriate template. So, if you don't have some of this, what else could you upload for project knowledge? Well, I do have the template that is in the course. You could upload our template. You could upload blog posts on citations. I've written a lot of blog posts and other people have as well. Maybe you've gone to a class and there's a handout, or maybe you have purchased the ebook and you could upload that for, your project knowledge. In Claude, it does not train or share any of your private project knowledge unless you say I think if you give it a thumbs up, but I don't think it would share even any of this as well, as far as I know. I like Claude because of its privacy. So this is what I've set up. And now, whenever I have a record, I can just copy and paste in information from that and let it format for me, which is a beautiful thing. Okay. All right. So Robin has the question, does Claude have the published GPTs shared by users? No, it doesn't. You have to set those up yourself. And I believe that my GPT over on ChatGPT is available. You guys can go search GPTs and put in Diana Elder, and then I think it comes up, the genealogy source citation builder. So you could see if you can find that. All right, so let's see what happened when I put something in. So I took a screenshot of the census, and then I took a screenshot of the source page, on Ancestry. It does give you their source page where it has all sorts of details in there. And then I also gave it a screenshot of just the details. So I just threw in there, all those different things and said I need an 1830 census citation for this record. And you can see it said excavated census citation details for Johnny Dawson. And then it said, based on the templates provided and information from your images, here's the proper citation. And it did a really good job. The 1830 US Census, Morgan, Georgia, population schedule, district, page. Now, it didn't have the line number because that was not provided in the source information, and I didn't tell it to go look at this. But it did tell me that I have to go fill in the specific line number and I have to add the access date. So if I'm doing a series of citations all within one chat, it will remember the access date as I keep going. But I hadn't used this for a couple of days, and so it didn't know what the date was. Now, an interesting thing was that it didn't follow my instructions quite because I had said to use new evidence explained for citations, and it fell back on the old way of doing the microfilm, whereas the new one has us put in the collection. So I did have to make that correction. And I just very simply said line 17, access date 13 August, use new evidence explained template. Excuse me. So then it fixed it up. It went back and found the right template. And so, if I were, I could go and redo that template and just take out the old version, but I left it in there and it does seem to confuse it a lot. So anyway, I did check, and I always check to make sure that it actually brings in the right collection, the right URL. So what I do is I'll click on that, make sure it opens up, and then, anyone or, any of us could go find this information very easy. So pretty quick, I was able to create that citation. And that's so handy because honestly, census citations are just kind of time consuming. Elizabeth Sean Mills has given this great template that we all use because she figured out a good way to do it. And before, we'd have to go through and just change every little thing and figure it out. So being able to have AI just do that is a lovely thing. So I do that very first. And then when I'm sure, I have it like I like, then I just copy and paste that into my Airtable log. So here's my Airtable source citation cell opened up and gives me a chance to once again check for accuracy and go ahead and add the italics to Ancestry and have that all how I like it right there. So that's very, very helpful. I have done this for all sorts of citations. I have done it for deeds. Um, for books, works really well for books because that's a very common citation format. You could take all the information on a website and just throw it in there and have it get you started. And then you could go and think about how you need to add some information. Like on Family Search, they give you the citation and it's never quite complete enough. It often is missing the name of the person or a specific page number. Well, it might be the same thing with AI, depending on what you're trying to have it do for you. But it can at least get you started and maybe get you over that hump of just being afraid to start on a citation. Okay, now what about the idea of the source details? So sometimes this is really easy to add source details, but sometimes it's a little bit more work. An AI can help you with some things. So for the Johnny Dawson census, here's a little bit of the first part of my Airtable research log. So I just typed in his name, the date, census, it's from Ancestry. There's the URL, it's Morgan County. This is all the easy stuff. And then I had the citation done. So now I'm to the details. And for this, I like to just copy and paste from the Ancestry or Family Search page, whatever I'm using, if they've got a good record of, if they've got a good abstract to start with. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And then I can always add to it. So in this case, I like to check and see if all those tally marks really work with the census. And so, after I did that and thought it looked pretty good, I wanted to do another step, and that was to have all of this translated to birth years. Because I can do that, I can think of, how old they would have been, but, that's just a little bit more math, and sometimes I don't want to take the time to worry about that. So I will often turn to AI to try that as well. So I gave it to Claude and I said, here's the household makeup in 1830. Please translate into birth year ranges. And so it gave me birth year ranges. And so it said, so keep in mind this is 1830. A person under 5 would be born between 1826 and 1830. And these were all good. I checked them all. The only problem was this one in yellow, because actually this is supposed to be a male who is 15 through 19. So for some reason, it just did not translate that, which is one of the oddities of AI, even though, it looks pretty clear, but it messed up on that. So we check every step to make sure we don't introduce any errors into our research. And I checked all the enslaved people, all of those, all the rest of the numbers were just fine. So I really liked that use of AI to help me translate those ages in 1832, their approximate birth years. So I did tell it to change. I said this should be a male, and it corrected it. And so one thing that I always do is correct AI. You can correct it yourself in your research log if you want to, but I like to just type in what it should be and let it give it to me correct. Now, when I put it into my research log, I also did some annotation. So I already had this in the details, the basics. So I put this in comments so I would know this is my extra thoughts, because comments is the perfect place as you're logging your research to just add your hypotheses. It doesn't have to be accurate. It's your ideas, it's your thoughts. I might discover something different, but this is getting me started. And so I reasoned that this young child would be a son, and these two young girls would be daughters, that John would be the male and his wife would be the female. And then this one would not be their child because she would not have had a child at age 10. So this was a servant, a worker, a farmhand, could be extended family living with them, but this is definitely somebody else in the household that is not their child. So I wanted to make a note of that. So this is the perfect place for you to add some things. It's also a really good place that you could add ideas for future research. So I could have said, future research, I could try to figure out who this is. Now, in Airtable or your research log, if you're not using Airtable, whatever you're using, you could also have a field or a column that just says future research, and you could just put it in that as well. So depending on how you want to set it up, you could do both.